E3 2021 is coming up, so let's have one last analytical hurrah for what we've seen so far in Pokemon Legends Arceus. I made an initial analysis for the trailer we got in the Pokemon 25 Direct, but since then I have studied every square inch of it and compiled a sizable list of many overlooked details that I've seen either no one, or very few, take note of. I'll also be analyzing details listed on the websites and the newly popped up Nintendo page for Pokemon Legends, so stick around for that. Let's start with an important one I want to get out there because I see a lot of people talking about it. No one has pointed this out, so I figured I should start out with this. But the low frame rate Pokemon we see in several clips like this Chingling are actually billboarded. You can see very clearly in this clip, because the camera is rotating slightly, that the Chingling is actually in 2D, not 3D. For those who don't know, billboarding is a technique used in game development to increase draw distance for assets. Very far back objects are typically in 2D, then as you get closer, they change to a low poly 3D model. And the closer you get, the more details erupt in the asset until boom! You're up close to it and it's fully rendered in all its 3D glory. This technique avoids that horrendous pop-in we constantly got in Sword and Shield. The billboarding is also why the Pokemon's frame rate is so low. You're seeing fewer keyframes because we're seeing a billboarded Pokemon up close, meaning Game Freak was in the early stages of actually setting the Pokemon into the world they've modeled when they were distributing footage for this trailer. Other shots actually show Pokemon that have all their frames of movement and their full 3D model, including Chingling himself, as well as the scenes with Bidoof and later on with the starters. This is likely because the models are redone, as we have proof with that with Cyndaquil's flames and how Oshawott and Rowlet have actual mouths instead of just having them built into their textures. It looks like they're putting this much attention into all the Pokemon models, and sadly they were probably forced to have this trailer out before they were ready. Now let's look at some more practical details, such as the fact there are lampposts in our base village. Many people overstate just how far back these games take place, and these lamps are a dead giveaway that some technology definitely exists already by this point. We also know from the shot with the starters later on that there are well-lit rooms. Some Poketubers said they think this is the product of some timey-wimey stuff and that this room takes place in the future and we travel to the past, but that's fairly debunked by the lampposts we see in other shots of this old-time village. These are very clearly the kind of lampposts that go into the ground to connect to some sort of electrical charge. Now, no one has mentioned this one either, but there's a cute sound effect when you press a button to aim your Pokeball. Minor, but pretty neat and overlooked. This also gives us some deeper insight into how the mechanic will function, most likely being activated by a trigger button and aimed similarly to using Link's bow in Breath of the Wild. Speaking of Pokeballs, I originally said the Pokeballs of old were probably made with some sort of spirit wood, as many cultures used to, quote-unquote, tame spirits with wood. Think like how Wood-style tames the tailed beast spirits in Naruto. However, what I didn't properly conclude is that in Pokemon lore, it's more likely spiritual apricorns. We know from the Johto games that Pokeballs used to be made with apricorns, so perhaps apricorns are the material used to tame spirits in Pokemon lore. In which case, we'll probably have to gather the right kinds to craft our own balls, or have someone craft them for us. Some of the leaked screenshots for Legends show trees that look like the berry trees from Sword and Shield, and in the DLC for Sword and Shield, those trees also carried apricorns. That's probably at least one way we'll need to collect them for making Pokeballs, although I am hoping we get more interesting ways than that. Another cute sound effect we hear in this scene towards the beginning of the trailer, it seems to just be the sound of Bidoof walking in the background. The god of all Pokemon really does have a loud walk, huh? No one has talked about this, but in the Shinx catching scene you can actually see some other Pokemon hiding in the tall grass. You can hardly make them out and all you really see is the yellow color. Are they just more Shinx, or maybe some other Pokemon? Either way, there are quite a few of them, and they're on screen from pretty far away, which is nice. Fun fact, the Shinx was facing away from his buddy when he got caught in the trailer. This definitely wouldn't excuse him having no reaction if he had been facing him when he was caught, but it's still something I find funny that people talk about nonetheless. On that note, the drawings we see in the trailer are supposed to reflect what we end up seeing in-game, right? This is implied by how the drawn mountain turns into the in-game one at the start of the trailer, and how our base town is going to be crawling with people. Well, there is also an artwork of Piplups interacting with each other. Perhaps we will see this sort of behavior in-game, and that other Pokemon will run if they see you catch or try to catch their buddies. I've only seen one other person mention this one. There's a giant geyser that can be seen in the far distance in many shots during the trailer. I wager it has great importance based on the draw distance, size, and amount of shots it can be seen in. It looms in the background almost as much as Mount Coronet, so perhaps it connects to a legendary Pokemon. Or maybe it's a visual marker for where we need to go, or something we've marked on our map. I'm personally leaning more towards this being something caused by a Pokemon in the distance. Something purposed to catch our eye and draw us there early in the game to spark a major progression of sorts, or introduce a major mechanic we should learn. Here are all the shots showing the geyser in the background. I've mentioned before that it's odd there's only one bell on one side of these twin gate posts, but once again, no one else has really talked about it. On top of my previous theory that the bell is used to warn against dangerous Pokemon, I think we might also need to find or make another bell on the other side at some point in the story, since there's a ladder on both sides of the gate. The bell may be linked to summoning legendary Pokemon, such as Arceus himself, or some connected legendaries like Palkia and Dialga, or Arceus and Giratina. Or perhaps 3 of these bells exist in the world, and our base town simply has one, and it connects to one of the 3 lake fairies, Uxie, Mesprit, or Azelf. There's actually a design on the bell. If this means anything to anyone, please comment it down in the comments, because I'm not aware of anything it might mean, although I do feel like it looks familiar somehow. This one may seem random at first, but there's a deeply colored blue pot outside of one of the houses in the village. What could this be colored so prominently for? It definitely catches the eye. Perhaps this is a market through the doors next to it? Or perhaps blue jars are an important item we can collect or interact with? It kind of looks like a sea incense, which is used to boost water type moves. Conversely, it can also be used to allow Marill and Azumarill to produce Azurill eggs. If this is a sea incense, I wonder what purpose it would actually serve in Legends. I've seen a few people mention this, but there are a few ruined pillars in this shot in the forest area. They bear a striking resemblance to Spear Pillar from Diamond and Pearl, and we know that Arceus existed above Spear Pillar in the Hall of Origin. In a game called Pokemon Legends Arceus, I'm more than certain this has something to do with Spear Pillar. However, I'm stumped on how it may be connected, since these relics are ruined here, and this game takes place before Diamond and Pearl, but in Diamond and Pearl, the Spear Pillar is not ruined, at least not to this extent. The tree in the back could mean something, as large trees like this one typically represent life, or rather a great source of life. One last fun fact before I move on to the website details, there's some paper lanterns on the outward-facing side of the village gate. It probably doesn't mean anything, but I think it'll be a nice visual touch. Okay, switching subjects now though. There was a new official Nintendo site for Pokemon Legends that just popped up alongside the release date tweets the Pokemon Company let out a few days ago. With that, I took the time to read the new site and compare with the official Legends site from the Pokemon Company, and I found a few things that I feel like people haven't paid enough mind to. Among both sites were clear wordings for us being able to research Pokemon behavior. On Pokemon Company's site, it says, observe them carefully to learn their behavior, sneak up, catch, or battle. And on the new Nintendo site, it says, explore natural expanses to catch Pokemon by learning their behavior, sneaking up, and throwing a well-aimed Pokeball. Between these two official statements, it seems implied that we'll see different behaviors from different Pokemon. We caught a taste of this in Sword and Shield with things like Emolga flying through the trees or Sharpedo chasing us down in the ocean. However, this time around, it seems by learning these kinds of behaviors, it will be our key to successfully catching them. Perhaps there's a pivotal moment in their behavior patterns that leaves them susceptible to high chances of being caught. Conversely, the website also stated that we could alternatively battle Pokemon to catch them. This implies that we have at least 2 ways to successfully catch Pokemon. Perhaps some battles are super tough, so we should try to catch them based on behavioral pattern? Or maybe some Pokemon have really tough behaviors to take advantage of, and we may as well just take our chances to beat them in a fight and then catch them. Either way, it sounds exciting to me. The last thing I want to talk about are both websites' attention to explaining how immersive the experiences are. We see them repeat lines such as blends action and exploration with the RPG roots of the Pokemon series. In this era, the Sinnoh region is filled with Pokemon living in harsh environments, set out to create the region's first Pokedex and discover the secrets of a long-gone time, and this new angle on Pokemon gameplay will deliver an immersive, personal experience brought to life by both Pokemon and humans. These kinds of statements tell us several things. For one, exploration is a larger focus this time around, perhaps an even larger focus than any of the 2D games placed on it. Second, blending of action elements does seem to imply much more will be happening when we're mobile, and that we're gonna have to learn a lot more movements and mechanics mapped to our controller buttons, which is definitely a plus. I don't think any Pokemon game up until now has actually utilized every button on a controller. Another thing to point out is their mention of harsh environments. We heard this in the trailer as well, but now seeing it in writing too makes me realize just how diverse the world might be and what kinds of conditions we're gonna have to play through during some of the segments of the game. Maybe there will be mechanics similar to Breath of the Wild, where we have to prepare our player character for cold temperatures, sandstormy deserts, hot lava, or turbulent rain. Finally though, is when the new Pokemon website said, the new angle on Pokemon gameplay will deliver an immersive, personal experience brought to life by both Pokemon and humans. This tells me that their goal here is to finally fulfill what it will be like for our character to truly be interactive and obtain camaraderie with their Pokemon. If those leaked images are anything to go by, we may be seeing some great things, as long as they do it right. I'm just excited to create my own freeform, immersive, and personal experiences with the Pokemon I love in a world I hope to get sucked into and never want to leave. If you liked this video, please consider subscribing and leaving a thumbs up to help me out. I'm hoping to get to 10k subs by the end of the year, so let's make that a reality. Thank you so much for everything. Peace